Welcome to Solutions Rising. I'm Rachel Branch, and I am honored to be joined once again with the distinguished Dr. Gloria Cabellaro Roca. We are going to talk about her recent presentation at the Symposia on Global Integration in Helsinki, Finland, and other pressing topics. Dr. Cabellaro Roca is a superb and informed educator. She holds 2 doctorates and 2 master's degrees, is a community leader in Holyoke, was a candidate for mayor of Holyoke in 2021, is presently the Green Party candidate for auditor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and is a professor of Bard Micro College in Holyoke. And she is a regular guest on Solutions Rising, for which I am extremely grateful. It is again a joy to welcome you to Solutions Rising. Welcome, Gloria.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me on.
Good afternoon
always.
and good evening for whomever is watching at whatever time.
You're so right.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
I really would like you to tell us whatever you would like about your distinguished background. But will you tell me and our audience what your 2 master's degrees and your 2 PhDs, the area that you received those incredible degrees?
Well, it's, when I had, I was invited to one of the, middle schools in Holyoke 3 months ago, and they wanted me to, talk about who I am, where I come from, and then I mentioned that I had all these degrees to motivate so that I could be a good role model. Mm-hmm. And some of the kids said, "Oh my God, but you've been studying more years than I have been, alive," because these were 11, 13-year-old kids. So I did my first PhD, and that took me 8 years at the University of Massachusetts. I did it in Latin American and Portuguese literature, cultures, and linguistics. So, and then first of all, you go into this program. It's an MA PhD program. So you get your Latin American master's degree. That's 5 years of study. And then you go on, and 3 years later, you have to write your dissertation and take courses while I was teaching also at UMass Amherst. So that took me 8 years. And then the second PhD took me almost 7 years. It started with a master's degree program that was a 2-year program through a consortium in Europe. These are 9 universities that decided to form a coalition, and they would get students at their universities. The first year I did it in Spain at the Oviedo University, and this is a women's and gender studies Erasmus Mundus program. So I started in Spain, Oviedo, Spain, that's in Asturias. And then the second part, I did it in Poland, the University of Łódź, or Łódź, as they say in Polish. So I decided to continue on to do my PhD in gender studies, diversity, and I majored in autoethnography. So that's the background of my...
Major in auto what?
Autoethnography. Autoethnography is not the same as ethnography. So you look at ethnography and you talk about a group of people, their culture, their cosmovision, et cetera. You are not part of the community. But autoethnography is you being part of a community where you are the subject and the object of research integrated in the community. It looks at emotions and healing, it looks at peace and integration, and it also looks at how your history is not a history is a lonely or alone history. It is woven and into the history of the rest of the community. Why was that important for me? Because it taught me how my history of being a Cuban woman of African descent and all the background that we shared is not only a struggle that I had to endure with my family being poor, but it's a dialogue that is interconnected with other people's stories and lived experience that also need to be validated, along with the larger history and contextual, positioning where you stand, and it comes down to politics and race and gender and diversity and the way you speak and dress and the way you internalize racism and you internalize, low self-esteem, et cetera. But how do you heal from that is not looking into your local community. It's not only within your family, it's within, it's in your neighborhoods, it's in your barrios, and it's also in your province or town or in the state. Talk about integration, right?
Does that mean you as a person working towards this degree become the subject and the object at the same time?
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Yes.
I've never even heard of that.
Yes. And this is sort of like putting body and mind and soul together. We are not just bodies that produce goods, in a capitalist society. We are souls, we are all sacred human beings. And how do we integrate that commonality into what we feel, how we feel? What is it that makes it different from you, and yet we share these emotions of rage or happiness and joy, and also fear and shame? How do we heal from that? That makes us sometimes become inhuman because we create otherness. How do we talk about that uncomfortable spaces, if not, with one another and looking at each other? For me, that was quite a journey. I learned a lot about the history of my ancestral history, my religiosity, my positioning in the world of politics, and why it is for me to just keep stepping up and trying to decolonize spaces that perhaps were not intended for me to be, or to have a platform. You see, as a woman, as someone who looks like me or have this accent. I am Hispanic, I am Latina, I am a mother and a lover and a grandmother and a neighbor. So how do you put all that together instead of looking at me with all these different lenses? Just listen to me, because we're sharing something that is common, and it starts with the commonality of our humanity, which is the basic thing. That's your heart. Let us open up. Let us integrate. That is, I cried a lot while I was doing my research. It was a lot of crying and growing from that. We come with a lot of that baggage that I call is a backpack full of emotions and ghosts that are put on ourselves, and that create and make of ourselves people who we don't really are. We are not,
you might say put on yourselves, but I would also say that was put on you,
Yes.
which we will discuss further in this.
Yes.
And for our audience that isn't aware, you grew up with an incredible mother who was a single mother with 4 children in one room.
Yes.
And your journey to
Yes.
wind up in Spain and Poland and Helsinki
Yes.
is just phenomenal to me. And,
Yes.
and so admirable. So if we come forward a little bit, I mean, I can't even imagine how you came out of Cuba and wound up with 2 master's degrees and 2 PhDs. I mean, it's just stunning.
It is, it's, you have to realize that we keep complaining. What are we doing then about our problems that we complain about? Are we making meaningful decisions? Yes, I am poor, and in Cuba we were very poor. I grew up in this one room at a hotel, and we lived there 26 years. What are we doing with our lives? Are we willing to break that cycle of poverty? Are we willing to just take off that emotional backpack, those ghosts from the past, and look at them in the eye? Yes, and feel the burn, and the emotions, and feel the crush, and reborn, get out of that. That's psychological, that's mental health, that's a lot of trauma that it is up to us to really heal if we want to be healed.
If you want and if you are able.
And
I know there are people that are so broken that
Yes.
are not able.
You're
and
not
of course
able.
we're going to go further into the discussion.
But it
of
starts
what
with
is-
you.
Yes.
It starts with
If
you.
it's possible.
It is, if it is
Yes,
possible.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm speaking from personal experience for that.
And you're right.
But
And I'm blessed, as you mentioned, to have
Yeah.
this mother, She said, if I were born in a, if I had been enslaved, I would have, broken those chains. I would, even if I'd speed or bite out something to get me free, to just free myself, do something. So if you grew up with that single mother in that one bedroom hotel room, 26 years, carrying water, with lack of electricity and sometimes food and money, and dad not around at all, so how do you make it? It's just because you need someone you believe in and who really motivates you, and you see that there's a struggle behind her and that you have to follow that route. My mom used to say, don't look at yourself in my mirror. And I never understood what she meant. I said, my God. And she would talk to you in this, allegorical way and using metaphors. I said, what does that mean? It wasn't until I, not to say grew up, but I was 19 and I got pregnant and I was a single mom and going to college and I was still living in that one room at that hotel that I realized that my mother didn't want her children to follow, on her footsteps. She was 21 and she already had 4 children. She said, no, I'll take care of the baby and you continue going to college. You're going to graduate, you're going to do this. And I did. It was very hard, but I was in Cuba, which made a difference. Free health care, free college education. And I made it. The 4 of us made it. So when we talk about healing, and we talk about a community. In Africa, they say it takes a village to raise, a child.
Yes.
I would love to see more of that integration here in my communities. I would love to see more justice where people have at least, public option, if not Medicare for all, because we're in the middle of a pandemic, because people need opportunities to just thrive and create and grow in their full potential. That support I had where I come from.
And of course, in your mother's generation and my generation, we didn't have, probably in your mother's generation, we didn't have preventive health care, women's health care, and ways to make choices about children. And also, well, I would say with men being part of solving that problem.
Their problem too.
So we'll go into that a little bit more. But would you now tell us your journey that took you to Helsinki?
Helsinki, yeah, interesting. So I've been, ever since I started at UMass Amherst, they said, Gloria, take your time doing your PhD. And I was at the time 34, 35? Yes, I was 34. And I graduated, I was 42. So what you have to do is to learn how to go out there and share your research findings with the big shots. Say, oh my God, I was trembling. I was lucky enough, and they were, gracious enough to give me a ton of money to support my travels. So traveling grants, or that's how you say it in English. So they say, okay, Gloria, there's going to be a conference here and there. So their generosity took me to Macau, to Greece, to Italy, to Spain several times, to Mexico, and I've been traveling ever since. So I learned how to do my research and to just be honest about my findings and the way that I shared it. So that's how the whole journey started. They called me the traveler, the traveling person.
But
so we got to
educational grants should be to support people who do not have resources. That's what education should be for all, for help people, individuals reach their potential. So you obviously had that support.
I had that support from the university. Yes, the Spanish and Portuguese department.
American young people should be entitled to.
Definitely, and that should not be a luxury, that should be a right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that should be a right. So years went by, and here I am still, doing the same thing. I am an academic, I am a professor, but it's because I like doing my research. And I humbly go to these conferences to share and meet new people and network and learn from them and keep in touch, stay in touch. So the 10th conference of the European Council of Latin American Studies, that's CEISAL in Spanish. They
CEISAL?
CEISAL, CEISAL.
Okay.
The 10th conference of CEISAL. They launched a campaign, publicity. Hey, this is going to happen. We're looking for academics and research people to organize, to send proposals and see if we accept, if they want to organize a symposium. So I wrote a proposal. I say I've participated in most of the conferences, and I have also organized symposia before with you. So this is my proposal, and it was about immigration policies, U.S. immigration policies. And I did a research. I integrated a lot of my previous research projects in terms of, U.S. immigration policies, ICE. At the time, we talked about the wetbacks and people who would cross the Grand River, and also some research on Haitian immigration and all the huge picture of these mounted, police on horseback and all the which and the colonial information that transpires from that, and also all the research under Obama immigration policies, Trump immigration policies, and now today we have, still these kinds of unfair, unjust immigration
And
policies.
disgraceful to say that we have not been dealing with
that.
The immigration of people who are fleeing from horror. And fright and murder and killing, and we still do not have an immigration policy that says, here, you are welcome.
Yes.
We will not let you die
and
at
then
the hands of horror.
Yeah, and looking at the root causes of that immigration.
Yes.
Why is it that people leave their countries? So they sent me like a month or so and said, okay, so what's going on? And they sent me a letter. Thank you so much. We have accepted, your proposal to coordinate and organize this symposium. Then I launched a call for paper. So send me a proposal that aligns with this symposium. I received proposals from Mexico, from Brazil, from the United States, from Spain. It was amazing, from Chile. And these were the people who participated in that symposium that I organized. We talked about what is going on in Chile that is spearheading women's rights in Chile. It's a huge bastion, liberating the voices of women who's being oppressed and their bodies being mistreated and not being acknowledged as human beings, and that their human rights are being really crushed. So we talked about immigration policies in the border with the United States and what happens with the children who've been here after 10 years by themselves. And there were interviews with those children. There was another presentation on the policies in Brazil and immigration policies towards the Haitian families to look for family integration, but it's used as a triangle also to get into the United States. We looked at the racist policies that we have here in the United States when we talk about ICE and when we talk about the border patrol and we talk about who is allowed in and who is left behind. This took place in a country, in Finland, that is a very high-tech, it's a wonderful country, and also in a place, Helsinki, where they have one of the best libraries in the world, and very high-end technology incorporated into a public library, which I had the honor of visiting. So it was a great opportunity for me to coordinate not only my symposium, but at the end I had to coordinate an entire session because two coordinators were not able to travel to Helsinki. So this became a huge session of people talking and denouncing the injustices of their country in the global South, and also people who are Latin American, Spanish-speaking, or Latinx, Hispanic, people classify themselves differently. Their lived experiences in the global North, meaning the Western countries and the...
In your symposium, were all those from Chile and, just say Haiti and Brazil, were they able to attend in person? Or did you do everybody on your...
Yes,
in your group?
Except for one, the one from Brazil. because he was not able to get a week off to travel. But then what we did was he was huge screen doing his presentation in front of us and people asking questions back and forth. It was really an amazing experience, and I am very proud that, not only that I organized that and that was approved, but the people who really stepped up, who found a need to share, what is it that is going on and why it is so important to talk about integration. When we talked about integration at the conference, they started first saying that we need to start talking about post-globalization. Of course, yes.
Sorry. That's like a post-racial society?
Right,
Please.
which is not, and we see the results of that.
Excuse me for laughing.
No, there are wars going on. The planet's being depleted. The planet, Mother Earth. We have, overreached the carrying capacity of the biosphere. We have destroyed the mother of all of us, and we're destroying their children. We are doing it to ourselves. So, and this is not only...
Well, I would just change that, I think, Dr. Gloria, and say
of course,
some of us are not included in that we.
Yes.
We know who is doing that.
Yes, and when I say we, it's because we're all human beings, and that we all have that, capacity or ability to be unreasonable. Yes. Okay.
I'll have to think about that one.
It's as a human being, it's emotions, it's greed, it is injustice, it is not acknowledging that we as human beings, we're working class, but there needs to be an international solidarity of all the working class people in the world.
Yes. What you see in a lot of the movements that are bubbling up that might actually save our world, but I do, because I don't know any other way to do it, I do separate out and say, we're all human beings on this earth, but some turn to pure evil.
Yes.
And I separate that out because there's nothing else that explains to me what happens with greed and elitism and privilege that has no room for anybody else. So I just call it pure evil.
It's evil and it's criminal. We should then start talking about demilitarizing police. We should talk about denuclearizing and decorporalizing our living, our lives and the world, and saving all of us.
How many people attended this symposium?
The conference in general, I want to say it's almost 800 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you and your group sponsored, financially sponsored, so that you could attend this?
Yes, some of us were sponsored. Yes.
Depending on need?
Yes. Some of us were sponsored, some others were not. That's why they were not able to attend. I think they were expecting over 1,000 participants, but then due to the economic constraints of universities and personal constraints, not all of us were able to attend. But
and how did they handle? We're not post-COVID pandemic, but were people careful with masks or separating, or how did you handle the possibility of COVID pandemic?
Well, now if you travel, at least when we went, you had to have proof of vaccination. Otherwise, you wouldn't board the plane. And if you did, you have to, take the test and get a shot and pay for that.
A shot right there?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Okay. So if you travel, you have to be vaccinated. And if once you're there, you wear a mask or not.
Yeah.
But they were very relaxed around masking, and I did notice that people, if we traveled in train, by train or public transportation, we did have to wear a mask.
Were people kind of social distancing, conference attendees?
No.
It's pretty open.
No, it was really relaxed.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's fascinating.
Yes. It was really wonderful.
So was your topic global integration?
Global integration, yes. And that meant solidarity, cooperation, collaboration. That meant understanding and dialoguing, looking at each other. It meant talking about the things that really affect us, human beings. Do you have trouble paying for your student loan in your country? Well, no, because in my country we only have to pay so much. But then in my country, you know, since people are indebted with hundreds of thousands of dollars. When you exchange that information, you talk about public health. What is it in your country? No, it's public health for everybody. It's Medicare for all. How about in your country? No, we have to have, you know, an insurance policy, or we have to pay for our insurance. And how does that happen? And that you integrate and you learn. You say, how come there are countries where all that is covered, and why is it that in my country we have to pay for that? So you integrate that knowledge, and you learn, and you stand up, and you step up, and you fight for that right that you deserve. Because you work, even if you're a migrant worker, or you clean, or you rent, and even if you're subsidized, you're still paying. You know, you say, well, let us integrate what's happening out there, and let us extrapolate and to make a better society here where we live. So, and then how do you change the curriculum around that integration and justice for everybody?
And a conference like this, a symposia, global symposia, I'm sure you found solutions coming through from all the different people who were participating.
Yes.
How it worked, or how they got something to work in their countries.
Yes, yes.
And of course they could see what wasn't working in other countries, which also is quite an eye-opener.
And it's an eye-opener too, to see you know, how idealized people have, you know, how much people have idealized the United States of America, how much the American culture has really been out there selling, you know, grandiosity and glamour, and yes, you can, which
Land
is
of the
all
free,
the
home
land
of the brave.
yes, and it's all words that are empty.
Yes.
Tell me, what is it that you want to accomplish? What is it that you need? What are the resources? And talk about, you know, the real words. We want Medicare for all. We want peace in the world. We want the cancellation student debt. We want housing for everybody, not just tiny thing. No, we want decent living. You know, we want the air to be, not to be polluted.
Not as a gift, as a
no,
human
it's
right.
a right, yes.
Dr. Gloria Cabellaro Roca, I am so honored that you've once again joined me at Solutions Rising. And of course, I know you will come again, and thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
If each one of us picked up one problem and solved it, imagine the incredible view we would all have of Solutions Rising. Please be part of the solution.